Price discrimination. What is price discrimination on the part of the seller? It is when the seller does not charge the same market price to all buyers, but discriminates between buyers. How? Well, in a simple way. He charges a higher price to those buyers he thinks have greater purchasing power, and he charges a lower price to those buyers he thinks have less purchasing power. In short, it's as if when we go to buy bread, let's say we go to the bakery to buy a loaf of bread. Let's see, how much does a loaf of bread cost? 50 cents for a loaf of bread. Okay. Well, we go to the bakery. Can you give me a baguette, please? Maybe baguettes are more expensive, €1. It's as if the baker said, just a minute, let me see your income tax return. We give it to him. Damn. You make a lot of money. A loaf of bread is going to cost you €20. You, on the other hand, you are destitute. You can have one for 5 cents. That is price discrimination on the part of the seller. Now, we see that in the vast majority of the transactions we enter into, we are charged the same market price as everyone else. When we shop at the Corte Inglés, we all pay the same price. No one asks to see our income tax return. Whether you are rich or poor, you pay the same price. And as we saw when we looked at two-sided competition, prices tend to be determined by the subjective valuations of the marginal pairs. The same is true when we buy a car, when we ride the bus, and so on. For a seller to be able to discriminate in price, two essential conditions must exist. The first condition, the seller must believe he or she benefits. And the second essential condition, resale must be impossible. Why can't the baker discriminate in price and sell a loaf of bread to this wealthy lady for €20 and to the destitute man for 5 cents? Well, because the man may be destitute, but there's no way he's an idiot. What would he immediately do? He would start buying loaves of bread at 5 cents a loaf, and right away he would resell them to her. Okay? As a result, the price would tend to fall. Therefore, whenever a product can potentially be resold, price discrimination on the part of the seller becomes impossible. In any case, there are a number of exchanges in a market economy which do not permit resale. Basically, services. And there is a typical example of price discrimination on the part of the seller. For instance, medical services. Traditionally, there were village doctors who charged a flat fee or provided certain services and charged a higher price to more affluent people and a lower price to less affluent ones. I will never forget something that once happened to me. I lived for 3 years in the United States, and one day I had a terrible toothache. I went to the dentist, and I sat down in the dentist's chair. And the first thing the American dentist said to me was, "So, what does your father do?" He was going to base his price on my answer. Clearly, if a dentist fills a tooth for me or does an implant in my mouth, I cannot resell that service to someone else. By the same token, for example, if a plastic surgeon specialized in making women look beautiful operates on a very well-known, highly esteemed actress, she is going to charge her far more than if she performs cosmetic surgery on someone of much more modest means. And here, there is no possibility of resale. The destitute man cannot say, "I will have the operation for you and then resell it to you," because resale is not possible. Price discrimination on the part of the seller is possible. Remember, the typical example is that of medical services and other types of services. And now, if we reflect on this a little and think carefully, we realize that actually, when resale is impossible, the situation approaches that of an isolated exchange. Do you remember the transaction between Julia Roberts and Richard Gere? Well, resale is impossible there too. In other words, the girl provides him with the service and he pays for it, but he cannot possibly resell it. So, in the end, price discrimination, due to the impossibility of resale, takes us back to the case of an isolated exchange, in which we saw that there are two very widely separated limits. One, the highest price the buyer was willing to pay, and two, the lowest price the seller was willing to accept. And the specific market price at which the deal was closed depended on the negotiating ability of both parties. In addition, we played some games and did some role play, etc., to learn more about the process.